time to talk about Mr. Don't Die,
Yes.
Mr. Bryan Johnson.
Yes.
Tell me your thoughts.
So I think it's an interesting experiment. I think that's really what it comes down to, is just to see how if you control all factors as much as you can, can you really slow the pace of aging? And I think that's what he's doing. And he has his team of doctors. He monitors pretty much everything. And so far as like I've read, that he has slowed his pace of aging. So he's down to 0.5. So he ages half a year, like half his chronological age. Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about that as a biological. So you said something interesting. First of all, you said he's slowing his pace of aging. That isn't exactly what he's saying. He's saying don't die, which is don't age.
I don't think we're going to be able to don't die completely.
Right. And if you listen to him, I think that's a little more theater, as they say, than really what he's trying to do. I think he's a guy who made a bunch of money. He's like, I want to stay as healthy as possible, and I'm going to hire up the team. And I
think with his origin story was that he was, I think he was 42 and just tired, depressed, overweight, and I think that's kind of how he started his journey on to increase, like to improve his health.
So we can basically say it's not really don't die. What he really should be calling his situation is, age slower.
Yes.
So you can be not just elderly, you can be welderly, right? Those are probably the less sexy kind of things that he would probably use if he was to be as honest and maybe a little less exciting as a podcaster or whatever. But in the end, like, he does have a variety of things that are interesting. Some of the things that I think are good things that he does, because there's some good things and there's some things I'm just not down with, right? I don't think there's enough evidence for. But the things that there are evidence for is he's very routine about his going to sleep.
Very
likes to go to sleep at the same time.
Yes.
Cool, dark room, no lights. Okay, get it. I think we've talked about that enough. That's I don't think he's taking anything to sleep, at least from a narcotic perspective. I think it's based on his very large group of supplements, which we'll talk about that in a minute. Obviously, then he wakes up and he does fasting. So he fasts. I think he's more. I'm on a 16/8, so I have an 8-hour feeding window. I think his is a bit shorter. I know he's very religious about not having eaten at least 3 or 4 hours.
It's 4 hours.
4 hours before he goes to sleep. So he's super religious about that.
And he monitors his heart rate so that he knows, if his heart rate has gone down enough so that it's time for sleep. So he tries to get his heart rate as low as possible. It's, they're talking like 40s.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And those are things that we can all agree are probably sensible, have shown a lot of data for. I believe he does take, creatine. I think that is a thing that, is very evidence-based. So far, he's kind of, he's got me. And I know he likes the dry sauna, which we've talked about. The Finnish study is, been going on for 20 plus years, multiple studies of the Finnish group. But certainly there seems to be a lot of data in that and increasing your, by sort of mimicking exercise a little bit, by increasing heart rate, lowering blood pressure, it seems to be beneficial. We're not 100% sure if that's the mechanism, but a dry sauna at a high heat, like as high as 180 degrees, with about 20 minutes a day, about 4 days a week, has shown definitively to reduce stroke, heart attacks, neurodegenerative issues, and so forth. Great. So those are just, maybe the top few things. Then he measures all these biologic versus chronologic ages. And that's where it's get a little wonky, right? Because
he's measured even to the point where he can, between his ears, one ear apparently is aging faster than the other ear. So he's broken it down into multiple systems.
Right. which is where I think he starts to lose me. I love the idea of your biologic age versus your chronologic age. I just don't think it's correct because we, you can say, well, my biologic age is I'm 60, but my chronologic is 50. Well, that needs to be broken down. Is your brain 50 or is it 70? Is your heart 50 or is it 70? How's your liver? How's your pancreas? How's, all these other organs? Because not every organ ages the same. And, the DNA within that organ can be different. There's mosaics they've found within the organs, and then the organs talk to each other. So if we know now that your heart can talk to your brain can talk to your gut, your gut can talk to your heart. So do they tell each other, hey, I'm getting older? Because people say that kind of exists. They kind of do talk to one another. And so I don't think you have one age. I think you have a variety of ages. But he has this like free test out there that allows you to do a variety of different really home-based exams that I know you are going to challenge me or challenge yourself and challenge everybody on it. Tell me about that.
So he does 7 different types of exercises, and that is supposed to kind of give you like to see how well you're aging. So there's just like trying to sit down and then stand up without like touching anything. So, and how many push-ups you can do. It's just, it was I think 7 different exercises.
I saw him do that, and I would have to just say it's helpful if you can do them, but I don't know what the null set is, what the opposite of that is. In other words, I couldn't sit up to a stand when I was 15. I would have been 90. So I should be like right now. It would put me at 150. So I don't think that that's necessarily. Now I don't think he does either. I think that's why he adds 7 of them. Amalgamates them together, and you have one sort of summarized number, which is population studies. It's like putting everything together. You end up with, maybe not the answers that you're looking for, but is it better to be flexible? Sure. But let's say, you have lost a leg. You're not going to be able to get up without, so there's like, there's caveats on so many of them that I don't think they can be. I think if you can do all of them, you probably can get I am better than my stated population ages and feel good about it. How that exactly tells you, if you have a family history of cancer, how that's going for you, I don't know. So it may give you a false sense of security. So I don't love that thing. I think it's a cool thing to get people energized to maybe be a little more physically fit, but I don't love that. I also, have looked at his supplement stack, and I don't want to go through. We don't have the time to go through each one. I don't know how he has the time. I think it's over
100.
100.
Yeah.
And this is a guy that literally will not eat out of a plastic utensil because he's worried about microplastics. Meanwhile, most of his supplements come in capsules. Those capsules are certainly not whole food capsules. They may be made out of gelatin, but still they're going through a plant, and you're doing 20 of them. Like I'm just noticed with my multivitamin that I never had before. I'm like, this is like I'm ingesting something that is unnatural for the natural benefit of stuff. Like we have to I think that he's lost a certain amount of what he's trying to do by going that non-holistic way of trying to be holistic. And so and some of the supplements that he's listed, I am not convinced of. Were there some that you reviewed, or do you know what it was?
I don't think the actual supplement list is really
released.
Really, I think it's just you have kind of ideas of what he's taken, but I don't think it's listed anywhere what exactly he's stacking.
Well, for sure, vitamin D. I'll tell you that much because he looks like he hasn't been kind of out in the sun. Which we know is absolutely necessary, minus the effects of what it does to the skin.
Yeah, the reason I think is because of his skin aging. So he was testing his skin age. That was part of that, and I think he's just trying to avoid aging the skin.
Tell me about your thoughts, because you're an expert in hyperbaric oxygen, because I know he enjoys
do that. Yeah.
Tell me your thoughts on hyperbaric oxygen.
So he did the 60 treatments. So he measured some biomarkers. He also did his kind of skin age prior to starting hyperbarics, and then did it after 30 treatments, and then did it again after 60 treatments. And it looked like all the biomarkers did improve. So I mean, I'm a believer in hyperbarics, and I think that it does help. So,
well, on the hyperbaric side, he measured telomeres, right?
He measured his telomere length. He did VEGF. He did a bunch of different biomarkers, and they all showed improvement. But there was that Israeli study that also checked telomere length, and they showed that the telomeres actually lengthened after 60 treatments.
Remind people what telomeres are.
So those are the little end caps on the chromosomes, and so as those telomeres get shorter and shorter, then that's how they think that you're going to age quicker.
Right, and maybe a correlation to senescent cells, that these aging cells, though cells that are being studied deeply now to sort of counter aging, thought to be.
Because they cause kind of like inflammation in their own, like, the way that they're just living. So if you can get rid of the senescent cells, then you kind of decrease your inflammation. And then as you decrease inflammation, everything else gets better.
Which is why we call it inflammaging, which inflammaging seems to be one of the keys why, as a cardiologist, we routinely check a CRP as one of our inflammatory markers. And it is absolutely as important as anything else to, eat a diet that's anti-inflammatory, to live a lifestyle that's anti-inflammatory. But in the end, to check your levels and then treat it if possible, sometimes with anti-inflammatories, although inflammation needs to be there to a degree, and you need to do that with a functional medicine specialist, consultation with your cardiovascular doctor, because these all sort of, there's a yin and a yang to everything that we do. But he does this, hyperbaric oxygen therapy, which I think has also got a lot of benefit. I'm a scuba diver, so I can tell you I always felt great underwater, right? Under
the pressure.
So you get up and you feel differently. The problem is it's expensive. The problem is it's time consuming. The problem is, logistically, geographically, it can be a challenge. So it's not really that easy for all of us. We have a friend in common that liked it so much he bought his own hyperbaric oxygen chamber company, I guess.
Yes, his own center. Yes.
Own center, and does it routinely. And we know people that do it to enhance some of the other things that they're doing. For instance, wound care. But it just doesn't strike me as, from Bryan Johnson's perspective, I don't think that's going to make him live longer. And I don't love that you end up doing all these things that are very important for people, but you do something that's so extreme. It's not really, he keeps saying, like, I'm doing this for everybody else. I'm the world's most studied human. But if you're doing something sort of extreme like that, that may skew everything and make everything else be, worthless, because you're basically saying, well, maybe it's hyperbaric oxygen, and now we all gotta live in a submarine. Which is not. What are you doing there? So if I were him, I would try and stay to things that are adaptable to larger populations. So it's not all about you. It is about trying to, become as healthy as a human can be, but it has to be things that are approachable. I don't mean free, and I don't mean just cheap even. I mean just approachable. Like hyperbaric oxygen is for a unique subset. But if all you're doing, if you're doing all these other things, how are you ever going to know which is helpful? So that's why I think, like, he does himself a disservice by adding too many things. It seems, I don't know, maybe he stopped it. I know he also does. We talked about dry sauna, but I think it also does like infrared light, which, what do you think about infrared light therapy?
I mean, I have it along with the hyperbaric. So like a lot of my patients will do the hyperbaric oxygen and then go to the red light therapy. It does stimulate the mitochondria. So if the mitochondria are healthier and producing ATP, then it helps you kind of really whatever's aching you or ailing you
can help you with
that.
recovery. Look, I went down this pathway when I was, kind of buying my dry sauna, and there was this option to buy an infrared sauna that also had red light there because they're different. The infrared, I think 680 is
So 680 is like the red, and then as you get up into the 700s, 800s, then you're in the infrared light.
So
wavelength.
This idea was I'm sitting in this warehouse and sitting down, and the owner says, well, you can try this. So I did. I walked in there, and it was like making me warm from the inside because that was the infrared nanometers that were basically semi-microwaving you or whatever. It's not a microwave.
No.
You're getting heat.
It's penetrating.
You're getting penetrating heat, penetrating waves. And then, of course, there was a red light thing in there. So if you got close, I heard it was about 6 inches away to your skin. It is shown to be beneficial on the dermatology side. So dermatologists have advocated for some skin health related things. But it's not like something trying to be anti-cancer. Maybe it helps a little bit with wrinkles for a period of time. But again, you got to be very close to it. You have to have repetitive treatments.
It has to be, yes, that's the thing, is that it's not not every once in a while. It has to be a daily thing.
So I walked away from that. I said, you know what? I'm going to do just
regular
thermal heat sauna with stones that emit heat, that go to a high heat, that increase my heart rate because I'm hot and sweaty, and that decrease my blood pressure because I'm kind of hot and sweaty. And that's what the Finns were doing. Yeah. This other thing, this infrared, which is at a lower heat, and then that somehow sending something that has got a deeper penetration, I felt, well, could that turn something else on I don't want to be turned on?
Well, that's the other problem, because if you're stimulating mitochondria, then you have mitochondria everywhere. So, yeah.
And by the way, I was talking about cancer, not when you're talking about a sauna, not turning anything else on. Just to be clear, this is a PG episode. I think that my feeling is that the traditional sauna is the way to go. And I think that Bryan Johnson's perspective on that, he's the first to say that he's experimenting on himself.
Yes.
And he's the first to say that he's studying his experiments. So I like that part of it. I just wish that as such a incredibly interesting specimen, he would stay with things that can be population expanded. And I also wished that he wouldn't sell any of the stuff. I saw a lot of commercialism starting to come out of there.
Well, they have the Don't Die conferences.
There's a lot of don't die economy.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I heard the guy made a ton of money, and I would have taken it even more seriously from a non-doctor as he is perspective if it was all being done for humanity and charity. Not that I'm a communist or I don't believe in capitalism, but I think in that scenario, he's got a great pulpit, and he could probably make a ton of money on a YouTube podcast. Like, what exactly does he need? What's he doing with that extra money? Anyways, like he's I think he's made was it like it's a fintech thing of something that he made a lot of money
on. I forgot the name of the company, but he sold, it was Venmo. So he made a bunch of money. Great. Like, now you're out there and you're loosening, you're weakening, you're sort of giving up your moral authority by starting to get into the salesman-y part of it, which maybe is a natural thing for him. I don't hold it against him. The data now is a little less pure as this kind of like there's some scientific friends of mine that are really into what's called the digital twin, which talk about a pure data bit of information. So they think that we can really get to a point where we make a digital twin of ourselves. So all of our DNA, all of our mutational omics, as Eric Topol likes to talk about, the omics, the genetic, epigenetic markers that we have within our body could be a twin version of ourselves, and therefore we could test how medications, how cancer treatments work on us. That's kind of what he's doing. He's not doing it as a twin; he's doing it on himself. But getting that kind of
level of information is right at our doorstep, given AI. And guys like Eric Topol have mentioned it, and others. And so I'm excited to see what that'll do. It's why I did my whole body. I had a conversation today about the whole body MRI question, which comes up a lot. Very controversial.
Yes.
Because people say, well, you find incidental findings, what do you do? And, but I liked it because it's kind of, I want to say it's not developing my own personal digital twin, but it's giving myself a baseline that has that could have an impact in the future in case there was something I was concerned about and I could see a change.
Something to look at, to look back at.
When an interesting biologic versus chronologic thing, like, okay, you've aged, do it in 5 years. Are you aging at the right rate, or is there some, multi-tissue problem that now you can see, So that's, I think, a really... the reason I did it, and let me tell you, I was claustrophobic as hell during it, so I had to get through that to do, because I did a whole body with the brain, took over an hour in a tube.
But MRIs are not fun.
But I got it done, and I do recommend it on certain occasions when they're under your care in a longevity kind of perspective, and you feel that would be the test that they would benefit from. So, So what else about Bryan Johnson did you want to talk about, or do you think we covered most of his sort of myths and facts?
Yes, I think we covered a lot of what he's been doing. Yeah.
I think there are people that probably would really want us to expose him, and people that would really want us to say how great he is. And I think that at the Doctor's Lounge, we don't do that. We're like, there are things that we can, root for him, and there are things that we want to say, people beware of. Like, I will tell you for sure, if you're on, 100 supplements, we need to sit and have a talk. Yeah, that's
because, when are you eating?
Right. And I would change his perspective from don't die to, slow down aging a little bit. Give it all a little bit of a pause it a little bit, rather than don't die, because this idea of eternity is contrary to, so much. Not to mention, we really want the next generations to do well, and to learn how to give them extra information is probably more important than making any individual don't die. But otherwise, I think it's a great thing we can review periodically, because he comes out with new things, and he is on a cutting edge, and he's dynamic, and he's interesting. And I want to maybe one day get him on on the other seat on a podcast.
That would be amazing.
That would be great to really talk to someone who's dedicated his life to testing himself.
Yes.
And I would very much enjoy that. I don't have to, after the negative things or the controversial things that we brought up, if he would want to do it. But I actually saw him very much sit in a room and take criticism. He's down for some criticism. But I think between my 35 years as a traditional triple board certified cardiologist, your multiple board certifications in functional medicine, family practice, wound care, all the things that you've done, it'd be great to sit and talk with him, and see how his listeners and our listeners kind of critique what we're saying and what he's saying. So maybe that would be something in the future. We'll see if we can maybe get this over to him.